Hello and welcome to theartofmoneysaving.com. If you're new to my channel, I'm a professional musician and I talk about all things personal finance. Now, I don't know if you know of Harald Baldr. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his last name, but anyway, give it a go. Harald Baldr, and he's a travel vlogger. I love his videos as well as Bold and Bankrupt. And these guys, they go around the world and they make travel videos. One of the things I love about these videos is how they just interact with people. It doesn't matter who they are, just chatting to people on the street. And I think it's just such a lovely way to create engaging material. But this is a finance channel, and I watched one of his videos which is entitled Money and Travel, Your Questions Answered. So obviously there was a bit of a demand for people asking him how he travels the world and how he affords to do that. And obviously he has a humongous YouTube channel which kind of helps, I guess. But in the early days he did lots of travelling on his own accord without his YouTube backing, and made it work. So it's really fascinating. And let's take a look at this video. I'm going to listen to it in my earphones and let the video run and maybe do some reactions as we go along.
Back then. So how did I used to fund my travels? And how can you save money to do the same? Or if you don't want to save money for travel, let's say you want to save for a car or something like that, well, I'm going to give you some tips right now. First of all, those early trips, my first around the world trips, they were funded by student loans, which I'm still paying off. Oh, I'm just sweating, sorry. It was quite a trek up here. I'm still paying off those student loans. So that's how I funded my early travels. But you say, how can you afford to travel with student money? That's supposed to go for school fees and housing and so on. Well, yeah, sure. But if you live like a, what's the word, miser? If you live like a poor man, there's gonna be some, wow, what about you? There's gonna be some extra money for you to spend. By the way, I'm in Florence. I'm gonna tour this Bardini's garden.
Pause it there at 1:48 now. So, I mean, that's the first point that he's talking about, of course, is living below your means like a pauper in order to fund travel. So that's definitely one way to go. And essentially the FIRE community, Financial Independence Retire Early, they're all about doing that. So living extremely frugally for as short a time as possible. So in order that you can, invest in the market, do all of that stuff, but then just kind of live your life and enjoy and go and travel and do those things. So that's not to everyone's taste, is it? Traveling like that, but it's a good point. Let's crack on.
So here's a couple of tips. I even wrote some notes for this one because when I start to ramble on like this, I tend to forget things. So here's some keywords for you: pants or jeans, razors, haircuts, mortgage, car. There's been years of my life where I've only owned one pair of pants. There has been years of my life where I have not gotten haircuts. I've cut my own hair. Haircuts cost a ridiculous amount of money, especially in the West. If you're in India, not so much.
Videos himself,
but there's savings to be had there. I've never had a mortgage. I've never owned a car. I have owned a motorbike twice, but that was as an investment because I used that to create videos that would make money. If it had not been for that, I would not have at least got my second motorbike. So most people, they spend their money on housing, whether it's a mortgage or rent. Now, when I was living in Australia as a student, my rent per week was $65 a week.
What?
$65. That's $260 a month.
How old is this guy?
I think we can agree that that's Spartan living, or as cheap as it gets. I had a tiny, it was 2 meter 2 by 3. That was it. It was just a bed and then a shared bathroom with 8 people. I also, here's another big one. If you eat out, never order drinks in a restaurant. Even if you're at McDonald's, don't order Coca-Cola. Don't order the French fries. You're gonna save shitloads of money doing that. A Coca-Cola in Europe is $2, sometimes $3, even at the supermarket. And in a restaurant, it can be $5. Or let's say you're at lunch. You're
I'm
eating
gonna
lunch
pause it
at
there
work,
at
and
3:47.
every day.
So I can definitely see what he's talking about when speaking about ordering drinks at restaurants. I mean, eating out tends to be expensive, but what I don't like there is he used the word never. And I don't think never is a particularly helpful word, is it? Because that brings out the more kind of radical behaviour in us. So I'm never going to order a Coke in my life if I ever go to a restaurant. Well, you know, sometimes you might want a Coke. So I don't like this word never when people are talking about personal finance. I just think it sets up the wrong message. But I see what he's saying. I mean, it's helpful not to eat out all the time. I mean, he does a lot of videos in Asia, and I guess it's not cheap for that. But let's continue with the video. 3:49 and go.
You're eating lunch. I mean, you need food to sustain yourself after the break. But let's say that you have a sandwich and then you order a drink, and that drink is $3. Well, 3 times 5 is 15. Now that's $60 a month. 10 months, that's 600. That's over 700 a year you're spending on that one soda can at work. Or if you have 2 cans during, you're well over 1,500. Or let's say, 1,400. Or let's say that you go out on the piss on the weekend. I mean, it's so easy there's so many ways that you can just cut your spending. When I was at university, I lost friends because I didn't want to go out. People's like, what's wrong with Harald? You know, why doesn't he want to come out? Well, I was in saving mode. I was living in my one pair of jeans, in my cheap $1 Bali t-shirts, and not spending any money whatsoever. That is how I could afford to travel.
50. So it's interesting, isn't it? When we see these YouTubers, we often think that they're living the high life, going to the nicest restaurants. It's fascinating to hear his insight. And just surprising that he was and / is extremely frugal. And the great thing about that is by cutting back on those expenses, it's allowed him to go and travel the world and do all these things that he would have never been able to do. Conflict for me is I really truly believe, after years of being way too frugal, that there is a balance to find. That the idea of saying to your friends, I'm not going to go out tonight, or losing your friends. I don't know. I understand if your friends are on a completely different wavelength and they're going to the fanciest restaurants ever and doing that all the time, then of course you're not going to align. But I think just a little bit, going out to a nice restaurant once a month, that's okay too, isn't it? It's the same with a Coke thing. Gotta give yourself some pleasures in life, otherwise it becomes way too extreme. So let's begin again at 4:50.
3 times a year, even when I was a student. Beautiful church bells in the background. Let me see here on my list if it's something I missed. Another one is hotels. I never spend much on hotels. If you can avoid, if you don't need the aircon, don't stay in a hotel with aircon. Live as cheap as possible. I remember when I used to go to Bali in 2001, I would spend, my hotel room was $6. I spent almost nothing on those holidays. And that is how you have to think. A recent example from Sri Lanka. Am I recording? Yes. When I was in Sri Lanka, hold on, let me just check that I'm going the right way here. I don't want to leave these gardens. Maybe we can check this area here first. I can sweat my way up these stairs to get the ultimate view. When I was in Sri Lanka, I wanted to do a motorbike tour of the country. And the first shop I went to was a Royal Enfield shop. Hello. Royal Enfield shop, and they wanted to charge me $45 per day, which is ridiculous for a Royal Enfield. When I was in India, I think I paid 20. When I was in my last India trip, I think I paid 20 or 25, but it's not worth 45.
See, this is the thing. Like, just chatting to people when you're on.
Have you been up here?
I mean, we can all learn something from that, can we?
I mean,
as an introvert, I find this really hard,
walking down here.
It's good, isn't it, to be challenged? Talk to people.
Okay,
so
I'm going to backtrack then and go down and see. There's nothing up there, right?
Really yeah. Yeah.
I'll end it up there then. Thank you, girls. Thank you. Okay, they just saved me a lot of time. Where was I? Yeah, the Royal Enfield in Sri Lanka. They wanted to charge me $45. What I ended up doing, instead of renting that one for $45, which would have been $450 for 10 days, it would have been $500 for 12 days, like I initially wanted to rent it for. I rented one for $50 for 10 days. A crappy motorbike that I had to kickstart. It was a nightmare, but I drove across the country 3 times with that on that one. And that enabled me to have $400 extra spending money. You know, that was the $100 I gave to the avocado woman. There's a couple of other times I did that, but I don't have that on film. Point being,
pause it there.
Don't
750 paused. Completely agree with him on this point. I mean, I had an experience of this last week. I was doing a work trip to Berlin, and I arrived into Berlin about 12 o'clock at night, and I had a flight back to London. I couldn't get a flight back that night, obviously. And flight back in the morning at like 7 o'clock in the morning. So I needed to be in the airport at 5. Did I need to splurge on a hotel? Man, it would have been so nice. I was walking past all of these brand new hotels, and they looked so comfy, little and lovely. But I said to myself, well, yeah, like for 5 hours, I don't need to book into a hotel. And so, but that's different for everyone, isn't it? For some people, that will be absolute kind of extreme frugality or extreme frugal behavior. But for me, I was like, well, yeah, I might be a bit tired, but I'm going to do that because I know I've saved like 70 euros, I think it was. That's a lot of money for one night where you're just getting like 5 hours kip. So definitely with Mr. Baldr here. Bye.